The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character. I went to my sister's gender reveal event during a hot Saturday afternoon. The sun was heavy in the sky, and the air carried that strange excitement people get during celebrations. It was the kind of day where everyone looked a little too cheerful, like happiness was something they had carefully arranged for the occasion. My sister walked up to me and gently pressed a sonogram photo into my hand, her fingers trembling with excitement. "Isn't she gorgeous?" she asked, her eyes glowing with pride. I work as a radiologist. Over the years, I've studied thousands of ultrasound images without letting emotion get in the way. Usually they are just another medical picture, another routine case. But the moment my eyes focused on that printout, a cold sensation crept down my spine. Something about it was wrong. The outlines didn't match what they should. The thickness looked strange. The shapes weren't right. Every professional instinct I had began ringing alarm bells in my mind. Still, I kept my face perfectly calm. I couldn't destroy her special moment in front of everyone gathered there. But deep inside, a terrible dread had already started spreading. My sister had always been the more emotional one growing up. When we were children, she cried at Disney movies and decorated her bedroom's ceiling with little glowing stars. I was the steady one, the older sister who fixed things. Bike chains, homework problems, broken toys, hurt failings. People came to me when something needed to be handled. Even now, at 41 years old, friends and family still called me when life started falling apart. But that afternoon, standing in a yard covered with pink and blue ribbons, I couldn't fix anything without shattering my sister's heart. Neighbors crowded around the food table, laughing as they held cups of sparkling cider. My parents stood right beside my sister, touching her arm every few seconds like pregnancy had turned her into something sacred. Her husband stood near the edge of the yard, flipping burgers on the grill. Every minute or so, he glanced over his shoulder and smiled at her like he couldn't believe his luck. Everything looked picture perfect, too perfect. "Take a picture of us," our mother called from across the lawn, waving her phone high in the air. I lifted my hands slightly but didn't walk toward them. My attention stayed locked on the ultrasound image still resting in my palm. I examined it again out of pure habit, hoping my first reaction had been wrong. It wasn't. That same heavy pressure filled my chest, the familiar feeling I had experienced countless times when delivering difficult news to patients over the last 2 decades. My sister nudged my shoulder playfully. "You're awfully quiet. Is all this cute baby stuff overwhelming you?" she laughed, pointing toward the party decorations. There were cupcakes with question marks frosted on top, a huge balloon tied to a chair, and tiny baby socks clipped onto a string like a clothesline. "I'm just taking it all in," I replied. My voice sounded steady, but inside my body anxiety crawled beneath my skin. I looked at her face. She was glowing with the kind of hopeful joy that makes people blind to everything else. For weeks she had been talking to the baby she believed was growing inside her. She had already finished setting up the nursery. Names had been chosen, plans had been made. If I said anything now in front of 45 smiling guests, it would destroy her, so I slid the sonogram into my pocket and tried to blend in with everyone else. I poured drinks for guests. I laughed politely when someone asked about my work. I listened while one of her friends shared a long story about motherly instincts and pregnancy intuition. Meanwhile, my mind screamed louder than the music playing from the speakers. Every time I saw my sister resting her hand on her belly with her head tilted like she was listening for something inside, the ground beneath me seemed to shift. Something was terribly wrong. Really wrong. I tried to steady my breathing, but my training wouldn't allow me to ignore what I had seen. The more I watched her walking among the guests, laughing and accepting compliments about her pregnancy glow, the more it felt like watching someone sleepwalk toward the edge of a cliff. Music blasted across the yard. Someone passed around snacks. Our father recorded everything proudly on his phone, but all I could see was that image burned into my memory like a ghost picture. The shape was incorrect, the density was wrong, and where there should have been fluid and delicate bones, there was a solid mass. My hands turned icy. I needed confirmation. I needed a moment away from the crowd, and I needed her husband. He stood across the yard, wiping grease from his hands with a rag after shutting down the grill. When he noticed me walking over, he flashed a wide, goofy smile that made my stomach twist. He thought they were moments away from discovering whether their baby was a boy or a girl. He believed his future was about to begin. I made my way through clusters of people until I reached the porch. "We need to talk right now," I said quietly. His smile disappeared instantly. "What's wrong? Did she eat something bad? Is she okay?" he asked quickly. "Not here. Come to the laundry room with me," I replied. He looked confused, but something in my voice must have convinced him because he followed me without another question. We stepped inside and closed the door behind us. The loud music outside became a dull thudding through the walls. "What is it?" he asked. "You're making me nervous." I inhaled deeply and chose my words with the same care a surgeon uses when selecting instruments. "That ultrasound photo," I began slowly. "It's not what you think it is." His eyebrows pulled together. "What do you mean? It's the baby she's been—" "It's not a baby," I interrupted, my voice dropping to a whisper. "That image isn't a child." For a moment he stared at me like a computer that had suddenly frozen, then the color drained from his face. "No," he breathed, "that's impossible. She's been feeling it move." "I know what she believes she's feeling," I said softly, "but I've looked at thousands of these scans. This isn't a pregnancy. It's a mass and it's serious." He braced his hand against the washing machine to keep himself steady. "Are you completely sure? Please tell me you're wrong." "I wish I was," I told him. Outside, the guests began counting down. 3, 2, 1. The party was racing toward a celebration that wasn't real. Inside the laundry room, her husband looked at me with pure fear. "What do we do?" he asked. The balloon burst. Cheers erupted outside. His life was already falling apart. Mine had shattered hours ago. Her husband's breathing became very fast as the noise from the party got louder outside. Little bits of pink paper floated past the window of the laundry room like falling flowers. I could imagine my sister crying happy tears, hugging our mom and dad, and thinking her whole life was turning out exactly the way she wanted. That thought made my throat feel tight. "We can't tell her here," I said in a low voice. "Not with all these people around, not like this." Her husband rubbed his face with both hands. "She spent months getting ready for this. The baby's room, the little outfits, everything. How am I supposed to tell her any of this?" "You don't," I replied. "Not right now. First, we have to get her to the emergency room tonight." He looked at me like I was talking in a different language. "She won't go, not after this. She's going to want to stay and celebrate." "I know that," I said, and my voice started to shake. But whatever is growing inside of her body shouldn't wait. A sound at the door made us both jump. It was our mother. "Are you two skipping out on the fun?" she asked jokingly through the wood. "Your sister is about to cut the cake." Her husband looked at me, and I could see the panic in his eyes again. I took a deep breath and opened the door just a little bit so I could smile at her. "We're just grabbing something. I told her we'll be out in a second." Our mother just nodded, not suspecting a thing, and walked back toward the noise. "What should I say to her?" he whispered. "Tell her I had too much to drink," I suggested. "Say you need to drive me somewhere. Just say anything to get us out of here." He nodded slowly, looking like a person who was drowning but trying to pretend he was fine. We went back out to the yard. My sister ran up to us. She had pink confetti stuck in her hair and a glow on her face that almost made me cry. "There you are," she said. "You missed all the photos. It's a little girl." "I can't even breathe." Her husband tried to force a grin. "Sorry, honey, my sister-in-law isn't feeling good. I need to take her to get some medicine." My sister's smile went away for a second. "But what about the cake? I'll be super fast," he promised. "Save a piece for me." She made a sad face but hugged me anyway, pressing her stomach against mine. I felt sick inside. That roundness she had been holding for months wasn't a baby or a heartbeat. It was just a quiet mass taking up space. "Send me a text when you feel better," she said nicely. "I will," I whispered. About 15 minutes later, we were driving away from her house. Her husband gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. I called the doctor before we even left the neighborhood. "It's me," I said into the phone. "I need you at the hospital right now. This is a major emergency. We need a full checkup, scans, everything. It's my sister." The doctor's voice changed immediately. "Bring her straight to me." When we got to the emergency room, my sister was confused, but she went along with it because her husband followed my plan. Inside the dark room for the scans, the doctor's face didn't change much before she stepped out to get another opinion. I recognized that look. I had used it many times myself. Then the monitor showed the truth. It was a solid lump on her ovary, big and easy to see. My sister stared at the screen. "Where is it? Where is the heartbeat?" she asked. The doctor spoke very softly. "There is no heartbeat." Her husband fell into a chair. My sister put her hand over her mouth and started shaking, but then she just slumped over like all the strength had left her body. The doctor helped her onto the bed while her husband held her hand and said he was sorry over and over, though she couldn't even hear him. I stayed by the door, unable to move. I had spent years telling people bad news, but nothing prepared me to watch my own sister's heart break in front of me. The doctor ordered blood work and called for the specialist, a top surgeon. When he got there, he spoke in a kind way and said the growth needed to be taken out as soon as possible. It's a large mass, he noted, but it hasn't spread to other places. That's a good sign. If we move fast, her chances are much better. My sister just stared at nothing. It wasn't a baby, she said in a tiny voice. I talked to her, I read stories to her. I even bought clothes. Her husband's face looked pained. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice cracking. I didn't know I should have realized. No, she said, shaking her head, it's not your fault. Someone told me I was pregnant. They let me believe it. Then her eyes turned to me. I thought she would be mad, but she just looked lost and sad. You knew this back at the party, she whispered. It felt like a knife in my chest. I had a feeling, I told her carefully. I wasn't 100% sure until this moment. I didn't want to ruin everything for you without being certain. She started to cry again, but she nodded slowly. Thank you for getting me here. The surgeon set the operation for 6 a.m. I stayed at the hospital all night, walking up and down the hall while her husband slept in a chair next to her. When they wheeled her into surgery at sunrise, she grabbed my hand one last time. Don't let them get away with this, she whispered. I won't, I promised. The surgery went on for 3 hours. When the doctor finally came out, his mask was hanging around his neck. I braced myself for whatever he was going to say. She did well, he told us. The lump was big, but we removed it cleanly. She is going to recover. A wave of relief hit me so hard that my legs felt like they were going to give out. Her husband started crying out loud. I didn't cry, not at that moment. 3 days later, the lab tests confirmed that the growth was not cancer. My sister would heal on the outside, but the fight inside her mind was going to be much tougher. She barely said a word during the first week. A therapist who helps people with pregnancy trauma, Dr. Janet Foster, started coming to the house for talks. Sometimes my sister would listen to her. Other times, she just stared at the wall. She had lost something she had believed in with every part of her being. She had named that child and planned a whole future for her. One night, while her husband was taking a nap on the couch, my sister whispered to me, how many other women did they lie to? How many others thought they were carrying something real? That question stuck in my chest like a piece of glass. I couldn't change what happened in the past, but I could stop the people who did this. I started by looking into the little shop where my sister had gone, Sweet Peak Studio. It was a place for keepsake, ultrasounds tucked between a yogurt shop and a nail salon. Their website was full of talk about hide-a-fin baby pictures and knowing the gender early. There was no mention of real medical staff. There were no warnings saying they didn't give medical diagnosis. It was just a bunch of packages, deals, and happy reviews. I started digging deeper. Underneath all the praise, I found some very sad stories. One mother was told she was having twins, but it turned out one twin was just an empty space. A father was told his baby was healthy, but then they found major problems at a real doctor's visit. Another woman was sure she heard a heartbeat there, only to lose the pregnancy weeks later. I started calling these families one by one. A woman named Amy cried while telling me how Sweet Peaks told her the baby was perfect. Her real doctor found birth defects only 2 days later. Another woman, Kelly, said they promised her she was having a boy. She gave birth to a girl with a serious genetic disorder they never saw. David told me his wife lost their baby after the studio missed all the warning signs. Then there was Chloe. She almost died because they missed a pregnancy growing in the wrong place. They told me everything looked fine, she said. I almost bled out in my apartment. Every story was the same. People with no training were giving out fake medical news. I put everything together. Pictures of the screen, stories from the families, bills, and notes. Then I called Simon Miller at the State Medical Board. He listened to me and said, "We've been monitoring places like this. If you can gather more documented cases, we can take action." I didn't sleep for 2 days. I talked to families, gathered medical records, and got permission to share their info. A pattern started to show up, a map of lies and ruined lives. Next, I called a reporter named Rachel Stone, who is famous for exposing medical scams. She didn't wait a second. "Send me everything," she said. "This needs daylight." While she was working on a news story, Simon Miller set up a surprise visit to Sweet Peak Studio to shut it down. I went along with them. Brenda Higgins, the owner, was standing behind the front desk when we walked in. The walls were pink. There were stuffed animals everywhere and fake medical posters on the walls. It was like a theater made of lies. "Can I help?" she asked. Her smile went away when she saw the badges. "Brenda Higgins," Simon said in a firm voice. "This facility is operating without the required licensing. You are hereby ordered to cease all services immediately." She acted like she was offended. "This is just a keepsake business. People know it's for fun." "No," I stepped in and said, "my sister believed you. She almost died because of your fun, and she wasn't the only one." For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," she stuttered. "Your sister must have misunderstood. She heard a heartbeat," I told her coldly. "From a tumor." She went totally quiet. Rachel's news crew showed up after the place was closed off. They filmed the inside, the evidence, and the legal papers. Rachel interviewed me right on the sidewalk. "What do you want people to know?" she asked me. "An ultrasound isn't a toy or entertainment," I replied. "It is medicine, and when people who aren't trained pretend to do it, people get hurt." The report came out on TV that night. It really shook up the neighborhood. Even more families came forward to tell their stories. Lots of lawsuits started to happen. A tough lawyer named Jessica Walsh put together one big case for all the victims. The trial went on for several months. I sat right behind my sister as she got up to talk. Her voice was shaky, but she stayed strong. "I loved a baby who never actually existed." She told the court, "I did that because someone gave me a photo and told me it was real. That lie changed everything for me." Brenda Higgins just stared at the table the whole time she spoke. When it was time for the verdict, everyone in the room held their breath. The judge said she was guilty of every charge. Brenda Higgins was banned from ever running any kind of health business again and was told to pay a lot of money in fines. She was taken out of the room in handcuffs. Only then, once justice had a name and a punishment, did I finally let myself breathe. My sister reached out and grabbed my hand. "You kept your promise," she whispered. For the first time in a very long time, she actually smiled. My sister's recovery didn't happen all at once. Some mornings, she woke up feeling strong and ready to get her life back. She would go to her sessions with Dr. Janet Foster, take a walk, or fix something simple to eat. But other days, she hardly said a word. She would just sit on the sofa wrapped in a blanket while the sun moved across the floor. Trauma changes people in quiet ways that you only see when things slowed down. Her husband stayed close to her, learning when to help out and when to let her be alone. He changed too. He was gentler, more protective, and didn't trust the world as much as he used to. Sometimes I saw him looking at my sister with a look that was a mix of love and worry, like he was scared she might vanish if he looked away. I went to see them a lot. I brought bags of groceries, helped with little chores, and took care of insurance phone calls, anything that felt too hard for them to do. Our parents stopped by with dishes of food and tried to say nice things, even though they were still trying to wrap their heads around how the party they enjoyed so much was based on a lie. Healing wasn't some big dramatic thing. It was just quiet cups of tea, taking slow breaths, and long times of silence where nobody had to say anything. Several months went by. One evening, my sister called me and asked if I could come over. Her voice sounded more solid than it had in a long time. When I got to the house, it felt different, warmer, and more peaceful. Her husband opened the door with red eyes, but he was smiling. "She's in the living room," he told me. I walked inside and stopped in my tracks. My sister was on the couch holding a very tiny baby wrapped in a soft yellow blanket. The baby's dark eyes were looking around the room. "This," my sister whispered, "is Lily. We finished the adoption papers this morning." I felt so many emotions at once that I could barely catch my breath. My sister's smile was shaking, but not from sadness this time. "I didn't think I could ever love again," she said. "Not after everything that happened, but as soon as I held her, I knew she belonged with us. She was always meant to be ours." I sat down next to her and touched the baby's tiny hand. Her little fingers curled around my own, and she felt so light and real. My sister put her head on my shoulder. "You saved my life," she whispered. "All of this happened because you chose to tell the truth." The house was very quiet, except for the sound of the air conditioner and the little breaths of the baby sleeping on my sister's chest. In that quiet moment, for the first time since that party, I felt a sense of peace deep in my bones. Sitting there with my sister and the baby, I understood that the truth hadn't destroyed us. It actually saved us. The lies would have taken her life. Her future would have been ruined every day. But choosing to look at what was real, even though it was painful, made space for something honest and good to grow. Families aren't made of perfect times. They are made of the hard things we get through together. If this story moved you, please drop a comment and let me know what you think. And if you're interested in more real-life stories about getting justice, finding healing, and the strength of families, be sure to subscribe so you're always ready for the next one.